Welcome, everybody, to Nerd Wars. Thursday night, I'm so happy to be here live with all of you as we talk movies, every geekery thing out there. We're going to have some fun tonight. I got my drink. Hope you guys do, too. Got a snack. I got to warn you, though, right out the gate. Tonight's going to be heavy. And tonight, we are spoiling Tenet. Now, Christopher Nolan's Tenet, I know, is not out everywhere. So that's why I'm giving you plenty of warning. The problem is it's been out for a week in a lot of places, and it's been here in the States for the past few days. You've had an opportunity to see it, or you could have driven to another state, so I don't want to hear it. You all had an opportunity. Whether you did or were able to, that's up to you, but I understand some of you weren't able to, so if you want to tune out tonight, respect. Come back after you've seen the film. This will be a conversation for people who've seen the film. Tim, Barry, thank you so much. Excited tonight. We'll ease the annoyance of working 8. Oh, sorry, man. Well, Tim, thank you for your support always here on the stream. And Tony, I saw yours earlier. And I saw Tim, I think, were you also the member? Yeah, Tim Barry became a member. Thank you, Tim. It's a beautiful way to become a supporter here on Popcorn Planet. A lot of these streams are I shorten them for YouTube's sake, but the whole shows, if you miss them live, you can always catch them for members only, as well as a bunch of other members exclusives and perks and stuff. So if you want to support this channel, support me, what we're doing here, please check out the join button. Or the mods will be sharing links. You can donate throughout the show. If you donate, I'll get you in. I'll make sure I get your parts of the conversation. You'll guarantee yourself in. And then midway through the show, at some points, I will be bringing people in to call in to defend the film and talk with us. So stay tuned. Again, if you support, you get in faster. Otherwise, you got to sort of ease with us as we go. So thank you, everybody, for watching and tuning in. I got 2 special guests joining me tonight. Let's meet them. We got Paul is in the building and Darth Daddy Lunga. Now, Paul, welcome to the show. You are a fan of this film, correct? You love this film.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Safe to say. And then Darth Daddy Lunga, you have called this a trash fire. Is that what I've heard you? Dumpster fire.
The exact phrase is a beautifully visually stunning trash fire.
Got it. Okay, so perfect. Now, I'm probably more in the disliked it camp. At the same time, I'm happy to announce I just watched it again. I was able to see it again, took a lot of notes. I've brought my notes here, and I have so many questions. And originally, I was just going to do it, does this Tenet suck, and go clickbaity with you. But no, that's harsh. I don't think Tenet sucks. I don't think the movie sucks. But I don't know if it fully makes sense. And then after watching it a second time, I got more and more frustrated by parts of it as I started really thinking about it and challenging the whole idea of the movie. Some things did make more sense. I mean, but also things I already saw, it confirmed a few things I already noticed. But I look forward to this conversation because I want to ask a lot of questions for both of you guys, and I want to sort of come to this idea of, does this movie actually make sense? And the other question I want to ask is Christopher Nolan overrated at this point? I want to argue it because it does sort of feel like he could pretty much make anything, and his supporters will find a reason to love it, is what my argument there is. And I wonder where you guys stand with it. But let's open this up. Let's start it out. So Tenet, John David Washington is our protagonist in Christopher Nolan's latest. And it's a lot of inversion talk. But before we get to it, this is your final warning. Spoilers is in the title. We will be spoiling the movie. I know people are going to be coming in midway, but I hope they get the word. I've put it on some of the screens here. Spoilers are about to begin. We are going to get into spoiler territory, so if you want to watch this movie clean, check out and get there because I want to have a conversation where we're not worried about spoiling it for you. So you've been warned, so let's have a conversation. All right, so guys, let's get to this first thing. Here's my first question, okay? And again, I'm just jumping right into it, okay? Because we've all watched it. How do they go back in time? They're inverting themselves, right? How does that get them back into the past and then get the information to come back so quickly? It's my biggest problem with this movie because the few sequences where we get to see it, they go through that room, right? And they go through the turntable, and then they come out, and then they're inverted, right? They're inverted going backwards. When they're going backwards in time, they're people, they're bullets, they're whatever, they're buried, whatever. How are they able to use, how is John David Washington able to use the cell phone number that what's-her-name's using to then go back and always be wherever she is Is he really just inverting and then just wait? He's not like eternal. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a time machine. It literally just takes you backwards, and then you can go. How does that work? Can someone explain to me how the actual machinery of the time travel, I know it's not time travel, but the inversion for Sator and everybody to change time, Paul, let's go to you. How on earth does it make sense?
Because it makes sense because you have to understand it from the end of the film going. It's sort of like when you get to the end of the film, that's when it's explained how this all has come about, because they literally at the start they say it's a Cold War between two factions. One, they found like explosive remnants that are inverted, and they hint at like some sort of inverted nuclear device.
Hold on. You are not answering the question.
I am about to.
Okay. How are they going back in time? I understand when they sent stuff back.
They're using a bridge. So Nolan, he loves his science. He loves to base his stuff in some sort of reality of science. I forget what the bridge is called. It's some sort of it's like a theory of a time bridge. That's what he's using when he goes into the machine to invert themselves to go like into an inverted state to go back, and it's inverting their entropy state as well. So they're sort of traveling backwards. But the whole point is that he started that organization that recruited him in the first place. And when they slow down the movie in the middle and say that they slow down and they explain, it's not the grandfather paradox. It's not. We're not going to every decision makes an alternate reality. They say whatever's happened has happened, and you can't change the future. And that is basically the driving force of this movie, is that the future can't be changed because he is one recruiting all these people that actually eventually recruit him in the past.
I'm glad you went there. So great, and then I'm gonna get you in Lunga too, but perfect. So, and maybe I know the answer to this one. So he did change the timeline, is what that implies, because we have this protagonist who doesn't know anything that's going on, but then we have someone from the future who is going back to a point to direct him. Are he and Neil actually changing the timeline to get to a place where the bomb net doesn't go off, and by the end of the movie, that's the timeline that worked, and so now they got to go back and sort of continue to do what they did to continue that timeline? That's the only sense I can make of it, because what I'm asking is that, so because he's the protagonist, he's so cocky throughout all of it, like he knows, then he sort of only comes into it near the end, but then we're supposed to believe, okay, in order to maintain this, he's got to go back and get everything ready to have this happen. But then wouldn't going back to get Neil change, like, so, all right, so that's already giving me a headache, because we come up with an excuse for it, but how are they going back and forth in time? And that's where I'm still stuck. It's not like the DeLorean where you enter the date, right? And then you go to a specific date. How on earth are they going back so often back and forth through time? Lunga, do you, before just to keep letting him talk, do you share my frustration on this one, Lunga? Do you understand what was going on?
Oh yeah, because I like, with all due respect, Paul, he says Nolan loves his science. That's great. Nolan loves his science that maybe he picked up from other movies and doesn't understand. If you're going to use science, you have to have it follow the laws of its own universe, even if it's completely fictional. You want to base your fictional science in some real world theoretical science. I get that. Okay. The string theory and this whole quantum mechanics and the grandfather paradox and all this. There's a lot of real world theories that they base the fictional worlds on, and you create the worlds for that fiction. You create the rules for that fictional world. Nolan did not create any rules. He created an endless time loop that everything they do at the end of the day is meaningless because it's meant to happen. If you get my drift, nothing is being changed at all. And the reason why if you want the question is, the first question, because there's two kind of questions you ask: how are they going back, and how do they know what's going on? I'll address the how do they know. The how do they know is his protagonist, wonderful name by the way. I mean, can you be any more meta? Okay, can
So
you be any more
lazy.
meta? Like I know.
Well, I
my-
just to echo you, so cocky of Nolan and pretentious, like
Thank you.
to give him those moments. I'm the protagonist, and then the woman's like, "You think you're the only protagonist?" And she's like, "Well, I
Yeah.
could be." And then at the end, "See, I told you, lady, I'm the protagonist." Oh my god, it was so eye rolly. But anyway, continue.
Listen, my movie is so complicated. I have to tell you who the protagonist is. The
Oh.
protagonist. Okay, at any rate. So the protagonist doesn't know anything, but ironically, he is a Mary Sue and can do anything, even though he doesn't know anything yet. But at any rate, he knows by his future self interacting with other people around his past self, like Neil, who guide him along the way to become that thing. It's kind of, if anyone's ever watched Doctor Who, not exactly the same thing, but if anyone's watched Doctor Who, the whole thing, like with the River Song storyline, where the first time he met her is the last time she saw him, and they go in reverse direction from each other that way. That's kind of a similar situation like it was with Neil. That's why Neil explains at the end of the movie that, this is maybe the end of the road for me and you, but for you and me, you're just starting, because he's going to get to know Neil more, even though he knows he dies because he sees that stupid string in him, and he knows that he dies at that last scene. Now, the how is not, sorry, Paul, if you can argue it, go ahead, is not fully explained. There's that bridge that you said Nolan loves. Okay, this bridge. Now, there's these items, we can invert time. If we go through this bridge, we can invert time, but yet somehow, if we go through this bridge, we pop back like a week ago.
Yeah, exact my question. I don't understand how you travel the distance of time, because you see it. They go back, and then he's going backwards, and then he inverts himself and goes back to the car crash. But then it's like he's moving backwards in time. Okay, so he's able to move forward. I understood that. They explained it. I don't understand it, but I understand, like, the bullet moves. You can only see it the one way, right? Okay, so when they're inverting backwards, like, they can move forwards. I'll give it that. But it would take months, years to get to the certain points that they needed to get to. And then what? So then they're stuck there. Okay, so I got to that point, and then how do they go back to tell themselves? They have to, like, camp out and wait, and then are they aging months and weeks at a time to get there?
If you remember the part with the Russian, his original self when he was cleaning that nuclear site, and he opened up that time capsule.
Yes.
He found the letter in there. He kept sending himself messages through time capsules. That's how he got the information. So I'm assuming this Tenet organization has a similar method, but we never see it. It's just assumed it happened.
Right. Well, he explains it. It's explained to Washington's character that at the end he realizes, that's why he says, "I'm the protagonist," because he's the one killing the loose ends off, so that it closes off all the possible obstructions to the timeline working out the way it's supposed to work out for him to start start Tenet, the organization, to stop the algorithm from being coming together and allowing that to happen.
Right, but
we're talking about
there's
a future state where the algorithm exists, right? And that's what that machine is. And so the idea is that the Russian, the baddie of the film, he's like constructing that for the future, bringing it together. But then he finds out he has the cancer. So it's like, and I don't agree. This is like Nolan's love letter to spy movies. He's making it like James Bond, but he's wrapping it in a time in like a science thing. So that's why the bad guy is over the top. That's the idea. Like, if you understand that, look at every James Bond villain. Every James Bond villain is over the top, crazy, doing stupid things, selfish things.
No.
But that's not the question.
That's not what we're talking about. I don't have a.
We can touch on that.
It is absolutely a James Bond film, and I don't have a problem with the James Bond.
You're talking about understanding a time that wasn't explained.
No.
I still don't understand.
About how
well, can I ask a specific question, Lunga? Like, at the end of the movie, he leaves the phone for posterity, so that way the woman can text him and call him into the ether. And I understand the idea of that. By sending out a message, then I guess anybody can then grab that and know whatever. Same the kill switch. I'm not even questioning that idea. But where I'm still confused by is, how did John David Washington get to the woman in the car to stop that? Explain to me how he actually did that. So correct me. So she gets the voicemail in her time period. And then is he in the present? Is he in the future? Does he go through the thing? He gets inverted. Does he have to spend months to get back, depending on where he is in his own timeline? How does he get there so quickly? So that could take a months, years, depending on what he is. He's suddenly ahead or in the future. But that's my problem. If he's ahead of that time period, he's got to go back. See, or if he's in the past, he can go still in the future.
That's how it worked out in the movie.
Hold on, you can't both talk.
Those bridges you can get back.
So the bridge will let you go uninvert yourself to go forward in time. But where I'm confused is, correct me if I'm wrong, neither of those devices fast forwards or rewinds your time travel experience, correct?
No. So it does it at the time. So that's why, like, when he goes in, when he first goes through after the car chase, etc., and they're trying to get that device back, and they go through and they see each other walking through moments later.
Yes.
They see the past. Yes. So what happens is if he was continuing on that backward spiral, and that's how they got to the airport scene. So, like, he was still inverted in that remember they're in the carton for
correct.
Like a week
I
or
follow
whatever.
you there. I follow you. So hold on.
That's the explanation. So he
correct.
goes back in time
I want to use
that phone call.
I want to use that. So exactly. So they go back in time, back to the airport, and they're in the box. They're floating back to the box, and all in that time, it's going backwards while they're floating. And then once they get there, they miraculously get there at the right time. We'll ignore the convenience of it all. But the point is, they were inverted. That's why they're in the tank. They got the oxygen. But they're basically traveling backwards in time, correct? To that airport scene.
Yes, correct.
So then they're there in the airport scene. Noted. Got it. Yep. They get out, and then they re-invert themselves so they can continue that way. At that point, they're moving forward in time, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, understood. Got that. How does he know where to go to save her every time she's in trouble?
So he gets the phone, say he gives the phone to her, right? And she gives him the call. Right, he gets the call in his present time where he is. He jumps in an inversion device. Right. He goes back a week.
He pops out.
He jumps back through. He waits a week. He goes to the spot where she said where the phone call was. He jumps in the back of the car.
Right.
So then what? So then he's stuck in that time period again.
Yes.
And so he's got to stay.
He waits it out.
You have to stay in the present to
but
follow
the one thing it does not address, Paul. I think we've seen stuff like this in Rick and Morty. That means depending how many times he goes back in certain areas, there could be 10, 15, 20 versions of him in the same time period running around.
That's why I'm not so quick to accept it. I'm like, all right, so you've answered the question, but logistically it's silly. Yeah. It's so silly. He's weeks at a time to just follow her. So then how is he solving all the other problems when he's literally babysitting this woman, which would be a full-time job, to make sure you're not too far away and protecting the girl, which he's not supposed to do? And then how did he solve all the other problems that he's supposed to be monitoring? It's because he's following the girl. It doesn't make sense.
All coming from a character, mind you, that feels completely sociopathic because there's no emotion from this.
None.
But suddenly this woman is the world.
Yeah, it's so that love story is so annoying. It's so annoying it totally loses me when that happens. I think we lost Paul.
I thought he was thinking.
Paul was worried. Paul's like, I can't answer these questions. I have to leave. He'll come back.
The way his face was, I thought he was like thinking really hard.
Anyway, that was my biggest problem with the movie. And anyways, he's coming back. But my biggest problem, and you're on it with me, of just like the time travel, because it's not time travel, right? That's the problem. But they treat the movie like it's time travel. Exactly. He's using the cliches of time travel movies, but he's doing it in the inversion gimmick, which to me ruins the movie. The gimmick was not worth it. The gimmick's too complicated, and when you really sit there and think about the inversion gimmick, it gives me a headache in a not an exciting way. Like I think of Arrival. You got to look at Arrival. Look at Arrival as another version of a time travel movie in a way. And not to spoil Arrival, if you haven't seen it, please go check it out. It's a great movie. Similar idea to Slaughterhouse-Five, if you ever read that book. But this new idea of how do you process time. Yeah. And that was clever. And I after that movie ended, it challenged my brain to think about how we could process time and why the ending in the movie ultimately could make sense. I remember having a lot of arguments with people like, oh my God, no, you meant, and then that is an exciting, challenging movie that I feel like Nolan missed the bar. It's not as good as that in any shape or form.
I haven't talked about this, okay? But there's a reason why this movie irked me, even from the early previews and knowing the science around it, because a lot of people may not realize this, but it was already kind of done last year. Okay, has anyone watched? It's a German show. It's on Netflix. It's called Dark.
No,
you have not seen it.
I haven't seen it.
It's the same concept, except it's not an organ. Well, there is an organization. Basically, there's this town in Germany that some nuclear accident happened, and there's doorway opens up in this cave, which allows time travel. And this one kid goes through this thing, goes back to 1985, and grows up there, and becomes the father of the main character, who's in love with his own aunt. It's just this weird, timey-wimey and incestual weird thing going on. But they basically what his time inversion is time travel the long way. You're traveling through time, but you actually have to travel through time backwards. So if you're going backwards in time a week, you literally have to take a week to get back in time. And then you have to take that week back again.
Yeah, which that makes it more complicated, right? Plus, let's not forget that what is it called? What is the machine called? What are we calling this machine? Does it have the algorithm?
Bridge. I think it was called the bridge or something. We'll call it a bridge just for layman's terms.
But the bridge is not like accessible anywhere, right? You have to go to the bridge.
No, because that was the main part in the middle where they're like, how are we going to get you back? Oh, well, there's the bridge at the airport.
In Oslo, right? So
Oslo.
You can do one in Oslo or you do one in the desert. It's like there's only a couple bridges you can use. So while you're doing these week-long travel trips, it's the planning of it is just a nightmare.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
We were talking about how annoying the bridge of having to find a bridge. They're not easily accessible. To not only find the bridge, but then the time it takes to go back and forward, it's not very convenient at all. And it makes it a lot harder for, say, Sador or the protagonist to actually get the things done that he needs to get done. And then he would be changing timelines a lot because he gets the note if he gets the note that something's wrong, I guess he could have gotten that in his time. Here's another question I want to challenge Paul with. How on earth, you can't answer this one. I will give you $10 if you can answer this one. Because it's just a movie. He just did it to make the movie more tense. How on earth does it make sense that the wife is on the same clock that they're on? She's in the future, they're in the past. And suddenly, don't kill him yet, we haven't destroyed the bomb. Hello, the bomb is being destroyed in the past. They're in the future. It makes no sense, Paul. That was just done for a dramatic effect. There was no need to have her on a clock. Wait, don't kill him, because we haven't destroyed the bomb. The bomb's being destroyed years before she's even there. How on earth could they even talk to each other? Like, what so stupid. Go ahead, Paul. How do you rationalize that one?
Because it's not in the past. What's happening during that boat scene? They're going to that pit at the same time.
Which opens up another.
They're not in the
thing.
same time. She has to wait.
They are.
No, I watched it again and I asked.
Yeah.
She has to wait
she
for
has
later.
To wait
it's not the same
who
time.
Are not inverted.
Right.
They're in the same timeline. They're in the same
timeline. They are in the same timeline, Andy. And she
they're
can't
just in the past.
let him die until they get the bomb. Simultaneously, if he dies, the bomb will go off. Now, that's not the issue. But I will tell you what the issue is, because I'm glad you brought up that scene, Andy. Because we have two armies going in opposing time frames at the same time.
Hang on. I just want to make sure you don't. It's not that you don't understand it, Lunga. It's that what? What is it? What's the excuse?
It's stupid. That's what it is.
Okay, but you don't understand. Is it that you don't understand it?
No. I do understand it.
I think it's that you don't understand what's happening.
You have two armies. We're talking about when you're looking at it, Paul. Okay, you have two armies. Okay, one inverted, one not inverted. Okay, and they're both going at fighting an apparently an invisible army, because I saw them fighting no one except for two dead bodies. I think I saw on the floor of the of Sador's army. I don't know who the fuck they were fighting, Paul, because there was no one there. They were shooting at the air.
They weren't. That was the inverted people shooting at that. And that's why they had that really impressive scene where he sucked the bazooka back inverted the first explosion, and then they blew up the top of the building instead for a distraction. You're forgetting that these people who were inverted are going into the past, so they know where the soldiers are.
I'm not
Like
forgetting. This obvious.
That's the point
obvious.
of it, and that's why it's like a spectacle, because there's people going backwards and in the present.
Right.
I do need to explain it because you're not understanding.
Just so you corrected me, Lunga, because you didn't have my back. They did show the inverted army near the end when Neil comes back. He catches them coming out to go in. So I had that question too, but when I rewatched it, it's clearly like Sator's army who is protecting the base.
There's a heap of men there, and there's mass loads of bombs and explosions going on everywhere.
It doesn't justify why they need a distraction and they reverse blow up the bomb. Like, there's so much silliness in that scene. There's so much, and they have way more army than they do. I agree. It's like the red and the blue team are way more bigger than the inverted team.
Exactly.
So it shouldn't have been that hard to do.
Is it easy enough to say, well, they're obviously fighting Sator's men? Yes. I'm not an idiot. I know they're obviously fighting Sator's men. That's apparent. What's not apparent is we don't fucking see Sator's men. Okay,
we see them. We see heaps of them.
They're like in the Arctic white suits. Yeah, they had like white and blue suits.
Yeah, and I saw like 3 of them.
But you're right. They didn't really like have. They didn't like give us like moments where like, and they could have explained that like Sator's men are armed. They'll protect us at any cost. But the other thing is like, didn't he know they would come? Did he know they were coming?
Yes, he felt that it was an inevitable time course, that nothing was going to change what was going to happen, that he was going to blow up that bomb. And because he knows the future, that nothing was going to prevent that from happening.
Well, what's happened. That's the rule of this of the universe, that he's picked it. This is why I say it's a good time travel movie, because he's actually picked a direction and stuck with it. He hasn't gone, I create an alternate universe halfway through, like Looper. Like he's done a direction where it's like, and you're forgetting this is a Cold War. So this is a Cold War between two organizations in the future who know the outcomes of these things already. They already know the outcome.
Right. Exactly.
So
what are they changing, Paul?
Huh? They have to go. It's a causality.
Right. They're just
the time
making
paradox.
Sure what happens,
they have to do it. So we're seeing what he had to do as the protagonist, and we're seeing what the organization had to do to do it. Although but they didn't. I don't think the organization counted on him being a dead man switch and cancer and all the rest of it. Although
Let
they
me
may
give
know
you
that
an example of what that is. When you get one of those fancy Swiss movement clocks, the grandfather clocks, or has all the gears, all the movements inside of it, right? You look at the clock, and you know that clock is going to keep turning, and it's going to keep turning clockwise, and it's going to keep going, right? And you know that it's going to keep going, that nothing's going to change it from moving in that direction. And we already know this. What Nolan did is turn it around, open at the back, and go, look at all these gears. This is why it keeps going that way. But I want to show you how each gear moves, but it still keeps going.
What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
Movie. Why? Then it wouldn't be a movie.
I need to know how a clock works.
Then so then there wouldn't be a movie, and he could have just done what he does, just done a James Bond. No, it's not pretentious. It's just a different idea. It's just a different idea.
Listen, I can have a million different ideas. Paul doesn't.
At least it's an original idea. I haven't seen
an original idea.
Hang on.
Bad one.
It's not. It's the
original one.
Hey, look at it. Look at it on screen. I've never seen something like this on screen before.
I just did. I explained it while you were gone. Dark. It was a German show on Netflix.
Dude. Yeah, sure. Dark. Okay.
Wait a second. Wait a second. So you did see it before.
Hang on. Dark is not a movie. It's a series that you can explain out over multiple episodes.
Oh, no.
This is a 2-hour movie.
Dark was better. Now let me explain.
This is a 2-hour movie.
Respond. Why Dark was better, and this is my main problem with Tenet. Dark was better because it employed some of the same theoretical and scientific concepts that Tenet did. However, you had an investment in the characters. You cared what was going to happen to them. You wanted to know why it was happening and how it was going to happen to them and how it was going to end. With Tenet, there is zero in the middle. It is a peanut shell that you're expecting this nice plump peanut when you crack it open, and you got that dried, shriveled, black, dark one that no one wants to eat. That's what happens when you watch Tenet. With Dark, the characters were compelling and interesting. In Tenet, they weren't. That's why this convoluted story that I have to think is a chore for something that there's no payoff for.
Okay, here's the counter to that. Do you care what happens to James Bond in movies, or do you care
Yes.
about that? Hang on, no one does. Everyone cares about
No
the
one
action.
does.
Hang on. People watch James Bond for the action,
That's not fair or true.
the women, and the gadgets and the cars. That's what
No,
people watch James Bond
Casino
for. That's what
Royale.
this movie.
Casino Royale
Thank you.
changed that.
I'm
Paul.
glad you said that, Andy.
No,
I'm glad
Casino
you said-
I'd
Royale
argue the next
was
movie
a great
changed it more.
origin, and then so was Skyfall. I cared about the character. There have
Here,
been
hold
Bond
on,
movies
Andy.
that made that.
Let's
They're
go with
two
his,
movies
let's
and a
just- let's
massive
go with
library.
his-
Hang on, Lunga. I've got to respond to what you said. That's two movies in a massive library of James Bond.
But that's
sleazy-
Bond today, Paul. Just because you're talking about old Bond, don't do a big generalization that we don't care
I'm
about
saying
Bond.
that
I
Nolan
care
grew
about.
up on those films. And
I
he's
cared
doing
about
an
Pierce
homage to
Brosnan
those
in
films.
GoldenEye.
Okay.
I mean, there's
Now,
just
hold
Sean
on.
Connery movies I care about. What are you talking about? It's not always the case. There
This
are
is a
some
man
guilty
who grew
dumb
up
ones.
on
But
these films, and he's doing an homage
Okay,
to those
great,
old Bond
great.
films.
He's doing a pastiche,
Sean Connery
and it's a
Bond,
horrible
right?
pastiche. Let me. This is the point I'm trying to make. Let's just go with what Paul said. Let's go with. Do you really care about James Bond? Do you really care what happens to him or to people? Okay, let's go with the assumption. No, you know what? I don't care about it. What happens to them? Their characters aren't compelling. I'm watching it for the spectacle. Let's say I'm watching it for the spectacle, right? James
That's what
Bond
people watch it
movies.
for.
James Bond movies give me the spectacle and action without trying to insult my intelligence that you have to be really pay attention and smart to understand this storyline.
So you're
just
saying
to
that
get
you
the
didn't
same
understand it.
spectacle of a
Hang
James
on.
Bond movie. That's
You're
the
doing
problem.
exactly what the critics have done. Every critic that has not liked this movie, I've read on Rotten Tomatoes, oh, it's too complicated. Or it's saying exactly what you're saying. Literally, this
I
movie...
said it before.
no,
critics did,
no.
sorry.
Hold on. Let me pull the reins on this.
And it's okay to not like it if
No,
it's
no.
complicated.
It's
and
not
that-
about
that's
not
the
under.
No.
It's
or
not
something.
Paul,
about.
and that is the cheap man's answer.
It's not about not understanding it. Hold
It's
on.
a
Hold on.
valid point.
Hold on, Paul.
No.
Paul.
It's a straw man.
Paul.
And you know
it's
it.
not about
But
not
you admitted that
understanding
you
it.
didn't understand the fight at the
No,
end.
I never said I didn't understand it. You keep adding straw man.
Why do
Straw
we?
man. I
why
never said
do we?
that, Paul.
Paul, here's my question. Why do we care? There are no stakes in this movie, and the effect, the inversion. What sequence blew you away where you're like, you know what, this was worth it? Like, to me, the reason it doesn't make sense in a broader sense of just like, why was this the gimmick he chose to run with? Because as we've been talking, and you left for a bit of it, the whole inversion time travel journey, you got to wear the face mask and then you go back for months, and then you sit there. It's not that exciting. The hallway scene, it's kind of confusing. Just like, who are they, backwards, forwards? It's not. Did you really enjoy that action enough to be like, whoa, Nolan's changing the game? Like, honestly, it just felt like cheesy backwards stuff. But then, wait, they can also move forward. Like, why did you care? Is what I'm really curious about.
Okay, so I would not say that the action was like what you said, like groundbreaking. That's not something that I would say. I think using a actual 747 and crashing it into a building, that was pretty cool. Like a pretty cool spectacle shot. The fact that they use practical effects, which is something that Nolan is known for, he doesn't try to use CGI as much as possible. I think that's pretty cool. That a lot of the stuff, the car, like the heist scene on the rail on the road, that was pretty cool. Like, but why did I care? I cared because I like time travel when it's done
like
in a
Nolan
way that's coherent. No, I don't like Interstellar. I don't like that movie. I don't like The Dark Knight Rises. I don't like but I'm just saying, I'm not a Nolan fanboy here. I can critique that bookshelf scene is one of the worst things that's ever happened in cinema history. I hate that. I hate the ending of that movie. But like the why did I care? I cared because this movie actually when they broke it down in the middle and they made a choice and they explained the grandfather paradox, I was like, finally a director and a writer who actually is picking a direction that makes sense with time travel. At least it makes sense that they're doing it this way. And it may be boring.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Months in
I'm
time.
so glad you brought that up. Hold on. That's the scene where Neil's napping and everyone's confused. And they go, the grandfather paradox. There is no answer. There's a paradox. Parallel world theories. Yeah. And then even Neil goes, does your head hurt yet? They literally, in the middle of the movie, basically throw those out to you because they know they can't explain it. They're just
Not only that,
they're throwing out these
they
paradox
put
and
it
alternate
on
theories,
display.
and they do it when he's like tired, and it's like the most annoying scene where they throw all that exposition to you because they sort of have to because they haven't already. And I just for you to say that's where it all made sense, dude. I watched that scene again today, and I'm still like trying to like keep notes. I'm like, all right, so wait, is this the grandfather paradox? Is this a parallel time? He never actually picks
Andy,
one.
I can explain that.
Well, I think he does actually. He does pick because they say what's happened. So the grandfather paradox is non-existent in this universe that he set up. There is no going back and killing your grandfather so that
They made their own rules.
There's a cause and effect. That's all there is. That's what he
but
explains.
hold on. The grandfather paradox is pretty much what's happening, which they're in it. No, but wait, hold on. Hear me out.
No.
Sorry, is it? It's the bootstrap paradox. I'm mixing them up. You're right. But
No,
they're creating. The problem is they're creating time loops. They're creating alternate time loops because you have to have John David Washington go back to alert someone in that timeline for the timeline to go.
Loop.
But I'm saying it is an
Yes.
alternate. It's an alternate timeline, is what I'm getting at. It is a parallel.
No,
How
it's one
no.
loop.
But wait,
It's not.
here.
It's
well,
not.
then
It's not a
then I'm even
multiverse.
more confused because I don't understand
Here,
how
let me
is
explain it.
how is Neil going back and changing things, and then he's there and they're running into each other, and that's not how did that begin with? Isn't that the
he sent
grandfather
him there.
paradox? Or no, that's the
He
bootstrap.
sent him there
And
from the
let me-
future.
this is what I want to explain.
But
Let me-
how
let me-
would
let me
he
get a
know
word.
to
Let me get a
send?
wording, guys.
Hold on. How would he have known to send him there if it didn't happen the first time?
Because it's a loop. What Lunga said is correct. What's happened. So he continually, it's a cycle. So like he is here in the future. He knows what's happened in the past because it's happened to him in the past, and therefore he sends Neil to go to these events in the past through the inversion device to meet up with himself to recruit himself. And it's a loop. It's a closed loop.
They explained it right during that scene. Okay, when
That's
Neil
why I
was
like that
explaining
scene.
to him, when Neil was explaining to him the grandfather paradox, the paradoxes, and he's like, they don't believe those things exist. They think they can do whatever they want, and everything will be fine. Now, when he's talking about they, he's talking about the people in the future.
Yeah,
correct.
Is the Cold War between these two factions, one of them being Tenet. Well, the person who started Tenet in the future is the protagonist.
Yeah.
So it's kind of think Terminator, how John Connor sent Kyle Reese back because he's his father to create what happened. Okay,
It's a closed loop.
one loop.
Yeah. It's
And
exactly
so
like Terminator.
Right. That's what he sent. But it's original, Paul, right? But that's what he sent them back.
Hang on. The bridge is original.
No.
The idea of inverting
The bridge makes no
and
sense. The bridge makes no
entropy
sense.
inversion. The fact that they were going to entropy inversion the Earth
Dude, Paul,
to
Paul,
destroy it.
Paul.
That was all
Wait.
original.
Paul, are you telling me you liked Nolan's version of this better than the Terminator? Honestly?
What? He's using it as an example. That's
I'm saying it's a
small
better
loop
example of this time loop. Which one does it better? You would
Which one
pick
explains it better?
Terminator or Tenet? Which would you pick as a better movie experience of experiencing the loop?
I like T2 better than Terminator 1 anyway. So,
But it's fine. Terminator franchise. My point is Terminator it destroys.
Oh, Terminator franchise. This movie.
T2 T&T2.
Hold on.
Absolutely
The
destroy
franchise
this.
includes a lot of good movies
I'm a
and a lot of
Terminator
bad
and
movies.
Terminator 2.
You
is
can't
good.
do that.
But my point is, it's like it's not the problem is that the loop. So all right, so the loop happens just like in John. I get it, but isn't that creating its own timeline?
No.
Well,
It's
no,
just
but
the one singular
wait,
timeline that's in a
wait.
loop.
It had to have because the first
No.
timeline didn't have him there.
No. Once this device was created
Who created the device?
That scientist that they named the there was a
female
woman,
scientist
the
who
Indian,
kills herself.
There's that exposition scene where he comes and he says, "You set me up," and she's like, "This female created this device in the future that
How
she
does she
killed
know
herself
that?
and hid all
How
the
does she
pieces."
know that?
Because he told her, and
Because he told her.
Yeah, he told her through another party in the future.
Right.
Did
we see that? Whoa. Did we see that? No, I'm actually asking questions. I'm asking questions so I make sure I understand it. Did we see that scene where the protagonist tells her that someone created it? That's just implied that it happened in the future. Okay.
Yes.
That's where I was
No.
confused.
The Indian woman. No. That scene happens. The Indian lady.
They don't show
he
him
tells him.
telling her everything.
Oh, they don't show you. They tell you.
Implied,
She tells
which is
him.
what he said.
So
she
anyway,
tells him
so we
about
know
it.
that this female scientist, not the girl scientist from the beginning, that's a different person.
Right.
A scientist in the future creates this device.
Yeah.
And
As
then
soon as she creates it, it creates the loop.
as
That's
soon
what
as
happens.
so as soon as she creates it,
she manipulates the.
but she makes the.
quantum
That's my
time.
point. Doesn't she make the loop at that point?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what?
So
as soon as she
before
makes that
that
device,
loop,
she
there was a
creates
different thing because
a
before
break in time.
right. So that's exactly what I've been trying to say. Before the loop, there was a different timeline. Correct?
But but there's a single timeline, so that it
Got
didn't
it.
split
But
off.
no, you
It's
can't
just-
say
it's
both.
The same thing.
Before the
Because
loop,
it's the same plot as Dark.
It's the same timeline.
To preserve
it's not the
this
same
loop.
timeline. It's not the same timeline because it
It's
didn't
not a
have
multiverse.
when
Andy.
she.
It's not a multiverse.
I don't. That's not what
Paul,
I'm saying.
Can you take back that I didn't understand it? Because everything I've said, you're like, yeah, Lunga's right.
Well,
Lunga's
Andy
right.
just admitted
Lunga's
I don't
right.
understand. He kept saying
Yeah,
I don't
but-
understand.
No,
Andy,
but-
that's
It's
not
like-
me.
But wait a second. No, I'm frustrated because the scientist lived a timeline where none of this shit happened. Correct? And then she
Until
made
she created the
and then she
device.
made a device. That's a
Yes.
timeline. Maybe we're just using the wrong terms or whatever, but I'm calling that a timeline. That was a history that happened, right?
Right. So
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
what
Whoa,
I
whoa, whoa,
say.
whoa, whoa.
There's a-
Just yes,
For
right?
the
There's a
loop is
line,
before the loop.
and then they made
yes,
a loop.
before the loop.
They made a loop that then affects everything that happens in her time and changes it.
Yes.
But there's no
So-
future past the loop.
So this is the
Everything that
time,
exists- Thank you. I was going to
and
use
then
a straight
here, this is where she creates the device.
Right.
This stops, and from
Creates a
this
loop.
point backwards, it's the loop on the same timeline.
It
That's-
never goes
that's-
past that point.
It doesn't
where she
go
created
past
the
that point
device.
where she creates the device because she creates it. She hides the pieces because she realizes that mankind's going to destroy
And it
itself.
starts this
She kills
never-ending
herself,
loop.
and that starts the never-ending loop of the
and
Cold
these
War.
these two factions think they're fighting against each other, but they're both
But they're just
trying to
cause
create
effect.
the
They're just
loop.
making it happen again and
right,
again.
which is the pot of Dark.
That's fine.
But Dark had better characters and a more compelling.
Dark has seasons to flesh them out. This is a 2-hour movie, man.
Well, maybe
Like,
Nolan shouldn't have tried to make
and
Dark in
you're-
a 2-hour
hang
movie.
hang on. And you're already saying that it's over-explained. And you're already, like David here in the chats is like, it's a very tell movie. But it's like telling people what's happening. But you're already saying it's over-explained. Imagine if they went into quantum mechanics in this movie. People would go,
That's why
what
you
the
don't
fuck
try
is
to
happening?
make this kind of movie in a 2-hour movie, Paul.
What, you
That's
wanted
why
him
it's a
to make?
trash
You wanted to make a
fire.
trilogy of
That's
it?
why it's a trash fire.
It's not a
Because
trash
he's trying to
fire.
take this
Because
very
people don't
complicated
understand
concept
it.
and squeeze
Oh my
it
gosh.
into this 2-hour movie.
Like I said to David, people who grew up on Star Trek will enjoy this film because
right? Because I didn't grow up on
it's-
Star Trek.
I grew up
Right,
on Star
because
Trek.
people who want
I love Next
Fast
Gen.
and Furious and explosions and
No,
spectacle,
no,
they won't
no.
enjoy this film.
Paul, here's
They
the
wanna
problem.
enjoy
This is
those-
a-
no.
Hang on. This is a thinking man's film.
Oh,
Can we
so
admit
we're
that?
we're
Yes, here
dumb.
we go
We're
with
just
this.
dumb. We're just
It
dumb.
I gotta
is, Lunga. It is. You have to think about it. After I
you're
got
not
out of
sitting-
cinema,
No, that
I was
doesn't-
still thinking about it. I was like, what happened? What does this mean?
But
I
it's
was
not-
still thinking about it, trying to work it out. That's what I mean by a thinking man's film. It's, I think you walk out of the cinema and it's like
Buddy.
Star Wars where you can go, okay, that's Star Wars.
Buddy,
It was
listen,
fine.
I
Whatever.
love
This is-
cerebral movies, but there's got to be a payoff for all the mental work I got to do. You understand? That's why I say Dark is better, because there's a payoff for all that cerebral work I have to do.
Oh man,
With
Dark
Tenet,
has got
there is
seasons.
nothing. There is nothing. I'm jerking off for 2 hours, and that's what it is. Okay, It's
I
an
totally
hour's
disagree.
work
No
for
way, man.
nothing.
I walked out of the film and I was like, wow, time travel done actually correct for once.
It wasn't done correctly.
Oh
It
my
was,
God.
man. It was. He picked a direction. Even if you say it was boring, going through the bridge and waiting months to have something eventuate somewhere else. At least, dude, you even admitted it was in a loop. You understood that it was a loop from the scientist.
Right, but that
that is
doesn't-
time travel done correctly, man. That is done.
doesn't-
That's picking a direction.
You
and sticking with
cannot
it. It's not
take
like
something
Looper.
that's theoretical science and say it's done correctly.
Correct.
It's theory
At least,
for a reason.
dude, it's still theoretical. It's like the black hole was theoretical, and then they wrote papers about
But
how
there's
it was
multiple
envisioned in
theories
Interstellar.
on time travel.
Yeah, that's right. There's the
Time,
paradox
time
theory,
travel
there's the multi-dimension
doesn't
theory.
exist, guys. Doesn't exist yet. Let's be clear.
There's a theory that you can go back.
Andy,
not forward.
that's why I called it theory.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. Right, you can go back,
And-
but then if you go back, you can't go forward because it would change. It would create a loop.
Yeah,
I guess is
you
what you're
can-
saying.
That's why they
But
can
here's
only
where
go back to the
here's where I'm
moment where they-
confused. Here's where I'm confused, and again, it still doesn't make sense to me. The loop. I know you're saying, oh, it's explained because of the loop, but the loop doesn't make sense to me because you have two people. What's his name? Kenneth Branagh, and you have John. They're both going back, changing things. So doesn't that change how things move forward? Isn't John
Remember
David?
the rule.
But isn't John
There's the
David?
rule.
Isn't John? He's making his own rule because he controls it now.
No. So the rule is what's happened. So no matter like going back in time, that is already happened. That's already occurred. That's just happening because it's causality. So what's happened. That's why he has to go to his death at the end. He's like, he knows he's going to die. He knows he's going to die. So does Washington's character. They both know he's going to die, but he has to go there for the door to be opened so that he can get through and stop the device from being destroyed.
Right. Well, so hold on.
cause and effect.
I wrote some notes. When they try to explain this with the bullet, right? You have to have dropped it. From your POV, you caught it. From the bullet POV, you dropped it. But cause comes before effect. No, that's just the way we see time. What about free will? The bullet would have never moved if you didn't put your hand there. Either way we run the tape, you made it happen. Don't try to understand it. Feel it. That last line is the most important. Don't try to understand it. Feel it. And that's my problem. Is like you can't actually understand it because it doesn't actually make sense. Why it does now? And granted, because we don't see time that way, but they're trying to explain it. So I agree. I see you're challenged by it and you like it, but I'm still I don't understand how if it's cause and effect. You're saying it's cause and effect. But then it's not. I'm
saying it's effect and cause.
It's effect and cause. So I could go. So John David Washington could go back and shoot Neil. What would happen?
He wouldn't do that though, because.
Whoa! But I'm just saying, in the rules of this movie, if he did, what would happen?
Oh well,
it won't happen because the movie's rules are cause and effect.
Yeah, the effect has already happened, so he's not dead.
And the whole free will thing is nonsense.
It's nonsense in this movie. Yeah.
It's nonsense in this movie because what they're basically saying is it's only free will because you will consistently repeat that same action.
Yeah. So the rock, right? Where the bullets, he's pulling the bullets back into the gun from the rock, right? That rock is from the future and that organization has inverted it. Or like there's an inversion bomb that's gone off, essentially, that's caused the rubble with the bullets in it to be there, right? And so what he's doing is he's essentially just pulling the gun, the bullet in time backwards to the gun because the effect has already occurred in the rock. It's already there.
It doesn't make sense to me. I'll admit it. I don't care if people think I'm dumb. This idea of
I don't think you're dumb. Not at all.
No, but I'm just saying. I'm just saying people in the comments or whatever. My point is, it still doesn't make sense to me. Sure. All right. I correct. I understand what you're telling me. I just don't. I don't agree with it. It doesn't make sense for a movie or a concept because I'm just like, well, wait. So, but I guess when you say there's no free will, everything was meant to happen.
Yes,
okay.
that's what he says at the end to him.
And then my justification for that would be like, okay, anytime they go back, the actions they do only go to a place where they can do it. Otherwise, it would mess things up too much.
This is probably gonna.
I get it. Go ahead.
This is probably gonna hurt people's feelings. Okay, but I don't care. I make a living of hurting people.
You don't care about hurting people's feelings, man.
I don't care. But listen. You know when you give a little kid a puzzle that's above their age group, and they work at it, and they when they complete that puzzle, they feel so fucking smart, and even though it was a puzzle, you know what I mean? This movie is to make dumb people feel smart because if they spend enough time to get it, and they get it. They're like, yay, I got it. And if you didn't get it, I'm smarter than you. No, that's why it insults my intelligence, because I did get it. And it was stupid. That's why it insults my intelligence.
You know what? We should change the title. Is Tenet stupid is now a better question. I agree.
What?
Yeah, I think Tenet is stupid. I think it's just I do. It's stupid and not in it because it's not stupid. It's very intelligent of a movie. But I'm just saying... you still haven't sold me on
Andy.
Hang on, it's not pretentious. It's just aimed at a demographic.
No, wait.
A specific demographic.
Hold on, Paul. What I was trying to get it spit out was the
gimmick. Zack Snyder now?
Shut up, Lunga, for a second. The gimmick is stupid. The gimmick makes no sense. It's not that visually exciting. It takes a long time to happen. It's not worth it. I don't want to watch them inverted. There's nothing cool about watching them inverted. Was the car inverted when it's driving backwards? Or is that just an inverted person driving a car, or was the car inverted as well?
Do you mean the accident he saw that was actually himself?
Correct.
Yeah, so when because it was N3 inversion, how he went into hypothermia because the explosion went backwards.
The car is going
froze
backwards.
The car.
The car is
froze
going
the
backwards.
car. The explosion froze the car.
No.
It's
How is the car? How is the car going backwards?
The car is inverted, man. The car's been inverted.
But it didn't go through the machine.
It went through the machine in the future. He's got mass loads of these things. You saw at the end, man. Remember how the army's going through multiples of those devices?
We didn't
it's literally
see
a
we
spinning
didn't see
door
a car.
device.
We didn't see the car doing that. So the point is, we're just supposed to assume that there was an inverted car just waiting for him. It's outside the warehouse.
Yeah, well, he planned for
because
it. Because
they can't show us all of it because it's a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of stupid dramatic effect that I get it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's like you have to take for granted if you think about it afterwards. I don't think it's stupid, as I was saying earlier.
So
I think it's just for a certain demographic. It's like, as a Star Trek fan, I appreciated it because it had the quantum mechanics stuff in it and it had the science stuff in it, and I understood that straight away. Lunga understood it too, but he found it to be pretentious. That's fine. I think it's yeah, exactly.
What's wrong with liking member berries?
No, it's because I like thinking movies. I like movies that make you last after the experience.
There's got to be a payoff.
It's like, and I like stupid movies too. I love Fast and the Furious. I love watching stupidity. I hope they go to space. Like it's the dumb fun movies. I love them. I love.
Are
80s
you
action.
someone who gets hard when you complete a Rubik's cube?
Oh my god.
Because it's
hold on.
But now you're saying that I'm stupid because I understand the movie and I'm trying to preach to people. I'm not trying to preach to people.
It takes a lot of skill to figure out how to do a Rubik's cube. But at the end of the day, all you did was put some colors together.
Sometimes that's impressive, man.
I like thinking movies, but there's got to be a payoff. There is a payoff.
The payoff of this movie is it makes sense. That's the payoff. It's not like Looper, where they're cutting people's fingers off and suddenly they disappear in the middle of him climbing a fence, which he never would have got up to in the first place because he had no fingers. It's dumb. Like, that's what's an example of a dumb thing. And the other day when you said Back to the Future is dumb fun too. It doesn't make sense time travel wise. It doesn't make sense in quantum mechanics.
But
it's
here's
dumb
the thing.
fun. It's okay. I love Back to the Future.
Back to the Future does
though. Serious time travel movie.
But Back to the Future makes sense for audiences. That's the difference here.
That's fine.
You're making Tenet. You're saying
Tenet.
You're saying Tenet makes more sense for science. Okay, I'm having trouble. But Back to the Future, I could explain what their rules are. Right? We could explain what Back to the Future's rules, just like Christopher Nolan's rules are. Right? No, Endgame has no rules, and they sort of say it. Endgame's a problem.
But they say it.
I'm not defending Endgame, but I will defend Terminator and Back to the Future. Endgame's a mess. But Back to the Future and Terminator, I do feel like, okay, we can at least explain it, whether it's right or wrong. There is no right or wrong because time travel isn't real, Paul! Jesus!
Hang on. The time travel theory is real though, and you have to pick something. They change gear. They change gear in the Terminator franchise because they try to say in Terminator 3.
Well, Terminator 3. No, I'm talking about Terminator and Terminator 2.
Hang on.
The other ones don't exist.
They try to say then, okay, it's not there's no fate, right, in Terminator 2, which is a great thing. It's like, okay, we can change the future. That's what the direction they go. But in T3, they say, actually, no, you can't. It's always going to happen. And they continue along that line in every single Terminator sequel from then. They go, you can't change the future anymore. They pick the same Nolan thing. They say, there is no changing what's happened. You can't do it. It's cause and effect. They go that same route. They just do it in a more popcorny, fun way. Whereas this movie is like I can agree to a point where it takes itself a little too seriously, and there is like points where it's like, okay, this is really intense, like science or whatever. But this is why a lot of people go to see Nolan films, is to be challenged to think. And I will say that that's why people go to see Nolan films, is to be challenged to think. Every single one of his movies makes you think, except for his Batman movies.
But here's the thing. I liked Inception. I liked Interstellar.
Memento is really complicated. I love it.
Memento, complicated, and I liked it. So if I like those movies and then I see this one, I'm like, oh, okay, Nolan, now you're jumping the shark. Now you're just like trying to be complicated just for complicated sake, not because it makes an intriguing movie. He's become a freaking meme of himself with this movie. That's the fucking problem.
I don't agree with that at all. I don't think this plot was overly complicated. I just think the science aspect could go over people's heads, and they need to see a second viewing of it.
You see, you keep going back to
we've hit this. We're going in circles. We're going in a loop. We're going in a loop. Let's not go that loop.
Is there more points to...
my other argument just is I still so we reiterate and wrap this portion of the show up. I still just don't think it was worth it. You keep saying it's it's original, it's great. You've now pointed out 2 versions of this type of theory before, and my problem is just like, I don't, why? I'm still confused. My question to try and figure it out, and then I'm going to open this up to the callers, but we're going to snip this for YouTube. But what I was going to say though is I don't understand how John David Washington just took over because he got the machine at the end, because I guess because Sador dies. That's why. Because Sador dies, and then he can't.
It was the organization was created in the future, Andy.
By who?
By him.
John David Washington.
He created Tenet.
So hold on. So sorry, because now I'm just trying to make sure I understand it. There's a point where the scientist creates this, and then separate, right, and then ends it, and then they're all trying to jockey to. How do they know it exists then?
Because those groups were part of that people who got those scientists together to create this thing.
The lady, the Indian lady, and the guy in
the scientists that created it.
No, the scientists that created it. Yeah. So think about it like
who? I guess let me start at the beginning. Who's hiring John David Washington? Who's hiring our protagonist?
John David Washington.
He is
in the beginning of the movie in the opera house. Who's hiring him?
John David Washington. He's not physically there doing it.
He sent these people,
like the John Connor sending Reese back. He's sending the people to.
So he's sending the messages to them,
right?
So when he's in the truck performing that, what do they do? I just want an idiot's guide to this movie. Okay, so beginning of the movie, he's in the truck, and they're like sneaking into the police. Right? There's some Russian terrorists that are there. What are the Russian terrorists doing?
Who knows? They're there to.
That's the thing. You don't even know.
So I'm glad because I still don't understand what they were doing in that beginning.
No, I'll agree there. The first act is rushed.
Wait, do you remember this part though? Do you remember when he was in that?
Oh, they don't explain it, and I couldn't hear it, man. Like
you don't
because of talk about that.
The sound mixing was terrible inside of the film.
Right before he ran out and left, do you remember the inverted bullet coming out of the seat?
That was Neil.
Explain that.
That's Neil shooting.
That was Neil.
But Neil they didn't show Neil shooting it or being there.
It was Neil.
It was Neil in a mask. I assumed it was Neil.
It was implied that it was Neil later.
But remember, there's the paradox though, the grandfather paradox. They explain that when he says how you know John David in that point. How you know John David Washington is when it started this whole thing is he explains that people in the future, they believe that it's cause and effect. They believe that the grandfather paradox isn't real. That can never happen. They explain that because then John David Washington, knowing it's him, is trying to kill himself. Meaning he knows that killing himself isn't going to change anything.
Correct.
So, all right. So just so I'm clear, we have the opera house. We have the shooters. They're Russians?
They're there for that guy. This is a CIA. It's a CIA.
So who's the guy who's been made? We don't know. They don't ever explain that.
That's a CIA.
He had one of the pieces.
Yeah.
So why did the guy have the piece? He's not involved with the Tenet or anything. That was just a random exercise.
He probably was, but they didn't fully explain it.
They didn't explain it, but my guess is that the organization, the counter organization, the Tenet in the future, had him having one of those things so that the bad dude could get it off him. And that's what the Russians were there for.
They said that this whole thing was a test for him.
Right. So, yes. But hold on, because there's so much to digest in that beginning, which I didn't really follow, and I'm still. That's one of the pieces. Was Kenneth Branagh involved in that opera scene at all? Does his character have anything to do with that? Because they mention the opera. Because he says later, "Oh, do you like the opera?" They're referring to that scene. I thought because he's trying to get that. He's trying to get that piece, right? Okay,
right.
So that's what I assumed.
Yes, that's what he sent the gangsters there.
And then people, he assumes that it's a nuclear device, but not everyone's supposed to know that it's a time.
And that
device.
was Tenet. That was him in the future sending the CIA. Basically dropping the hint to go to the opera house so he could recruit himself.
Okay, got it. So
that dude, that guy that wakes him up, that guy that wakes him up, he was sent by the protagonist as well to
and that's why
complete the test.
That's why he's called the protagonist because he is the main guy, past, present, future.
Yes, exactly.
So he passes the test.
I don't know why you have such a problem with that name, man. It's not pretentious.
No,
it's just a choice.
No,
it is pretentious.
It is
Paul.
absolutely
Oh,
the definition
come
of
on.
It is the definition of pretentious.
It's not pretentious.
Without a doubt. That is, you can't deny that one.
That
but
line
anyway,
at the end was great when he's like, I am the protagonist. And he shoots her in the back of the face. That was great.
No,
it was a James Bond moment.
Didn't like that at all. So when are we is it assuming then, so he was CIA, I assumed, whatever. He's doing this mission originally before all this happens, but we focus on that point because that's probably when he goes back and starts tipping people off to figure out what's going on so he can take over. And then and then he does the test with the cyanide pill, and then they sort of give him, so he's told Victor, that character in the beginning, the Tenet, he's told him to sort of the code and the embrace comes from John David Washington in the future being passed down to other people. Okay.
Every single person who he interacts with is set up by himself.
Right.
And then the crazy Russians with the train scene, whatever. Who gives them the suicide pill? That's also part. It doesn't matter, I guess.
That's CIA.
That's
okay.
CIA.
It's all CIA. So it's all set up by him in the future.
And so then not everyone passes this test is another weird line because it's like, so they've tried other protagonists. So
No,
did someone else do this?
Part of the loop. He knows he has to
It's
recruit
part of the
himself.
loop, yes. So he has to get him intrigued. He has to get him on board.
So he's just saying that that's a lie. He's probably the only one who's ever passed.
He's been told to say that, but he doesn't know that he's saying
you're implying You're implying a lot. They don't actually say that.
Knows everything. They just have orders.
And then literally, there's so many.
That's why he's like, I only know the word.
Here's why. But I'm just trying to point because there's so many little scenes. There's also a moment where John David Washington gets the note, and then he's like in a repair gear, and then he's on that dock, and then suddenly a car just pulls up for him, so he can like take that car to another. So John David Washington is setting all of that up
from the future. That's correct.
That is actually, honestly, Bandy, that's classic Bond stuff.
No. Whoa. From the future, setting it up to that much detail and actually pulling it off using the gas mask inversion technique, Lunga? Come on.
Well, yeah, because if they're in the future, they know the exact time, place, date,
where he's going to be. Yep.
So he's
then
going back
at the end.
That's the same reason why he could use that phone to know where she's at.
How do they know that? Someone would have to go. Someone would have to.
In the future.
No, I don't remember. I can't tell you where exactly I did what 8 years ago.
You don't have.
Someone would have to go back. Someone would have to go back and take the notes.
It's part of the loop, Andy. It's part of the loop.
And you don't have to tell anyone. If he tells her,
it's cause and effect.
Call this number, and she calls it, and then the next day or the moment he gets that call, he knows he can't get there in time. But he has that call. He's like, okay, here.
I'll go in there, jump in the machine, go back a week.
Or 24 hours, whatever. They never explained if all the gates have to be a week. It might be different ones. Who knows?
Oh, I'd say it's probably a day. Like, because
it could even be a day.
Well, at the end, man, you saw Neil's character, like Neil jump through.
And if everything just when it happens.
This conversation has made me dislike the movie even more.
Is that because it's too complicated?
No, I just don't care. Because you're telling me, it all's going to happen. And then if that's really what happened, one, there's no stakes. Who cares? And two, I'm bored by all the stakes. Because there's no stakes, and everything that happens kind of boring. Oh, and everything was just going to happen anyway.
Exactly.
Like, the movie's just dumb. It's a dumb, boring movie. Like, none of the action works for me. No. The inversion's boring.
The action was great.
No, I mean, what sequence was great?
Reverse the explosion and blow up the top was amazing.
Why? They just made a building go up. They literally reversed, rewound, and fast forwarded an explosion. Why was that amazing?
Yeah, as you're
I could pull up an explosion on YouTube and rewind and fast forward. What is the effect? Whoa. What was the effect they did in that shot? That was so amazing.
Yeah, you're saying, they just reversed.
Yeah, dude.
Reverse people camera angles.
No, they're just playing they blew up a building and then they rewound it. Dude, I can do that on my phone right now.
Yeah, he's not talking about the practical.
What was cool about it?
He's talking about the
what was cool about no, Paul? What was awesome about seeing the building blow up and then go back and then blow up again?
It was.
Why was that awesome?
It was planned. That was
because it was planned, but it accomplished nothing.
Yeah, just who are they distracting?
All the soldiers that are running up the hill with the car.
That we didn't see.
Later on, you see them when he
when knock down an entire building.
No, that was stupid. Sorry, that one was stupid. That was stupid.
2 cars.
That was stupid.
No, I said
didn't even
2
see that big of
times.
an army.
They
There was
reversed an explosion and they shot an
To
explosion.
distract one
But
car.
yeah, what distraction? Didn't
No,
they know?
no, to
Whoa!
distract
What
the-
distraction? It's all cause and effect, right, Paul? It's all going to happen.
Yeah,
It's distracting who? Because it's all happening already.
that's the point. Yes, the movie
wanna-
is that.
I
It's
wanna-
What?
cause
No,
and
but
effect.
what's this distract what? Because you told me all the events are it's
You're
all on
frustrated
purpose.
because there's a cause and effect, but that's the point. That's why I like the movie. The movie actually makes a choice and makes time travel a
But wait! I'm not trying to be mean. Hold on. I want to focus on that because that exactly is why I don't like the movie. Because it tells us there's no cause and
That's
effect.
why I like the movie.
But it tells us there's no cause and effect. But then the characters act like this is a distraction that's going to change the event of the movie.
Because they don't know.
That doesn't even
They're
follow
not
the rules
part
of its own movie.
They're not the future state. That's why they think it's going to change because they're not in the future state. So it does matter to them. In the present,
Listen,
it matters to them.
This is the reason, and people in the chat are kind of touching on it. But this again, I go back to Dark. In Dark, it's explained, okay, that these 2 groups want to.
Well, don't get so held up on Dark. I'm going to keep it. You're just going on a tangent that nobody knows what this movie
It's not
shows.
a tangent. It explains.
But I
this
believe
movie
you.
because what they don't explain. That
Well,
the
they
fact
also,
is
but put
that-
to Paul's credit, he's saying they had more time. It's a show, they had a season. I'm sure if Nolan had done a whole TV show of this, maybe we'd prefer it because he could have stretched some of this stuff out and not done it. But that's my problem. It's rushed, and then the exposition's done in these overly
The main thing I was gonna say
Nolan-esque
from Dark
monologues.
is what they don't explain here is when you say what started it, how did it end. The whole point of this cause and effect deal is it's an Ouroboros. You don't know what's the end and what's the beginning. It becomes lost. It becomes a paradox of itself. It becomes literally a chicken and egg scenario.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Don't know what started
What came
it.
first?
So you can't pinpoint where the beginning is because it's a chicken and egg effect. What came first? We don't know. If the guy who started it is the guy who recruited it, who's the guy who started it, where did it start? Do you get what I'm saying? It becomes an endless loop as a paradox in of itself, which is the chicken and egg effect. And that's the core of the problem, which why I bring up Dark is because they explained it in Dark. And it didn't take a whole season to do it. It was just one line of dialogue. They did not
I
even
agree.
explain that
And
in this movie.
I think they could have shown that better. I know it's like spelling it out for the audience, but it would have been nicer just to see John David Washington like actually be in charge of doing something, or like end it with the ending of like, okay, cool. Hey, we got to send you back. There could have been a more clever reveal, I think.
That's what they tried to do with him in the car.
And
They
Nolan
were saying
doesn't
that-
want to just spell it out to you. But yeah, the scene with the car following the girl almost was too much of a jump to me because I'm like, really? So he is going against Neil's advice and following her, and then this idea of he's got to police her this whole time, when I feel like there's probably other important things to do.
Because she's important. Because she's the one that stops him from killing himself.
Right, but we're in the world's been saved, Paul. She's not important once the world's saved.
There's the loop. It's still a loop, Andy. He has to save her.
Once the world
from
is
being
saved,
killed.
the loop is over, Paul. Correct?
The whole emotional attachment was between her and her son, which was a disgusting plot device that didn't matter in the long run.
Correct. And there's
It
speculation
totally mattered,
there is
man.
speculation that Neil
It
is
mattered
the
as a plot
son.
device, Paul.
Paul, what do you think about
Oh
Neil
my
being the
God.
son?
What is everything?
What
in
if
a
Neil
plot
is the
device?
Paul? What if Neil is the son?
Oh, yeah, we're going with this theory again, Andy.
Oh my God.
Does that blow your head up? What Neil is the son? I heard that theory.
Well, then that's a cause and effect anyway. But he had to save her at the end of the movie for her to stop the guy from killing himself so they could succeed at the mission. There's an effect and cause.
Whoa!
All of
Hold
it
on!
is
Hold
effect
on!
and
Hold on!
cause.
Hold on! He's saving her after everything's been done. Correct?
So that for the future, so that he can
No.
send all these messages back.
She does nothing
Neil
else.
is John Connor, and he has to make sure he lives.
Exactly.
But she lives. Hold on. No. That doesn't make any sense to me. The loop happens. Hold on. Where's the string or whatever? This is the string, right? And they
Yep.
all right, world solved. But she can keep going, right? But why does she need to live past the point where we've already done it? All of the things that she did happened on this point in the loop. She can keep
Because she
going in
always-
her loops. After that
Because
point,
she always lived.
But Andy, you're not showing a loop. You're showing an end.
But
He
my-
has to
Yeah.
loop.
She,
Yeah.
no, but I understand
Because-
why would her actions after the saving affect anything?
Because he always saved her.
He didn't have
And
to.
he always
though.
got in
Why
that-
did he have?
and hang on,
But see,
and
no,
he always
I
got
don't.
in that car.
That is
Hang
a
on.
stupid movie rule. Once
And he always
once it's because
and
they
he
say
always
at
got
the
in
end.
that car to shoot that woman
He
to close close that end off.
He chooses to do that. If it's the bomb that didn't go off, the danger no one knew is real, that's the one with the real power to change the world. That's how the movie ends. He's using that power to save her. He doesn't have to, is what I'm arguing. He doesn't have to save her. But so that's my point. I don't buy it. It's a waste of the power. It's a stupid thing at the end.
It isn't, because it changes him. That's the thing.
I don't understand it. It
changes him as a character. Meeting her changes him as a character. At the
Why?
Start, he's a CIA agent who doesn't care. He just does his job.
There's so much more important shit than that girl to save that world.
And he's invested in her. It changes him as a character in the movie.
People
say he has no plot. He actually has a plot in the movie.
Last point, then I'm going to open up this phone line. So, guys, and I got some super chats. Thank you, guys. I was heavy in this. He's not a good character. He's a very boring, emotionless character. I don't care about him once in the entire movie. There's not a single character I care about in that movie. Who did you like?
I do care about Neil.
I don't think
Neil.
That's the point
You're
of
right.
the movie.
Neil, to me, Neil is the protagonist. Neil is the hero of the movie. Neil's by far the most interesting part. I don't care about anybody else. You're right. I will correct myself. I liked Robert Pattinson's character. Who else who we care about?
I'll be right back.
What did you like about his character exactly?
What didn't I like about John David Washington? He just
no. What did you like about Neil's character?
Oh, I liked he was. I felt like he had more just humor. He had more like just. He explained things. He just had emotion. I liked his him. The only relationship that I liked in the movie was their friendship. And Neil
because he knew him for years.
Yeah, and I felt like
in the future.
But that was an acting and writing moment where Neil had something to play with, right? And he had to play off of the fact I can't really tell you. And at the end he does. So there's like emotional reveal there. Whereas I got nothing from that protagonist except for I'm a cocky jerk at the end. See, I told you I was a protagonist. Bang, and this made him cocky.
The humor doesn't work without him though. Like that plane part where he's like, "Oh, I want to think."
But that's not my point. That's not my point. That doesn't make the protagonist a good character.
But I'm saying is that there's no humor with Neil without him bouncing off the cold exterior of the protagonist. He's not meant to be.
No,
I don't think he's meant to be a likable character.
I don't think that doesn't make me like the character. I don't think he needed that at all. I just don't. Plus, how did that bungee jump scene make any damn sense? It didn't. How did they bungee jump up a building that they grapple hooked onto the right level that no one noticed? So anyway, let's open the. I'm going to open up the phone lines, but I'm going to trim this for YouTube because it's a long. This has been a long conversation with lots of it. But to answer the question of does it make sense? Yes, I think the movie does make sense. But I also don't think it makes sense in the way of why is it really that special? I don't see it as that. So it's a mixed answer to me of yes, I will cave and say a lot of it makes sense. Loose ends connect, whatever. There's explanation for things. At the same time, I don't think they're worthy. Is where I'm stuck. There's a lot of this unnecessary. The whole inversion thing is boring to me. So I think the movie still is silly. But to answer the question asked in this title, I will cave and admit that it does a little bit. It makes more sense than I think most audiences are going to say it does. But thank you guys for watching this. If you're watching the playback, I'm going to open up the phone lines here for my audience. If you missed us, you should have watched us live. But now's the opportunity to get a longer conversation with everybody joining us. So you can catch that if you are a member. Become a member, and you can go watch it if you didn't catch it live. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Be sure to subscribe, all that jazz, and we'll be right back.